Welcome back everyone. I'm going to show you a little fly that I've been working on for quite some time with our yellowfish season coming. I've been working on a few new patterns that I want to fish, and I quite like, last season I started fishing quite a bit bigger flies for yellowfish as point flies, and even damsel flies, and they were quite successful. And so I decided to work on a few larger mayflies. Now, the fly that I'm going to tie is a mayfly imitation. I tie it on the grip 14682. This is size 14, but I've tied them smaller even on size 18s. And I'm using a very small bead. I'm only using a 2mm bead, even on the size 14, because I want to fish it as a point fly, and I want it to be light. I don't want it to be too heavy. Now, the hook, you can tie this on various different hooks. If you want to tie it smaller than I'd say 16, you can go to the size 18 in the 14682, or then you can go to a 12004 or 12003 and tie it on those hooks. They work. They also look very nice on those hooks, and definitely something that I have a range of. And I tie them in different colors. I'm going to tie one with a silver bead and grey abdomen, but I tie them in black and I tie them in olive. And I start by tying a tail. Obviously cover the hook shank. I'm using a 8/0 grip thread. Cover the hook shank and then tie a tail at the back, or about almost the same length as the hook shank. And you tie that just down the bend, not too far, but you want it to point a little bit down, and then make one wrap underneath the tail. And that just helps display that tail a little bit. You can go forward, you can cut those ends a little bit shorter. Don't cut them too short, but you want to tie them in and form part of the abdomen. It just helps to build up that abdomen a bit, just like that. From there you take your thread back, and then you tie a goose biot in. Now, there is a video that I made on goose biots that I will link down below. I quite like to tie with goose biots, and on how to tie, which side to use. Now, if you're a right-hand tyer, use the left wing goose biot, and you tie them with a concave side down. If you're a left-hand tyer, use the right wing, and you tie it with a concave side up. No, or concave side down, at least. And you tie that in. If I can get it to play along, on top of the hook, right at the back at the tail. Tie the tip in, go all the way forward to that spot. Now you'll see that I leave that little gap between the bead and the abdomen where I tie the material down, and that's because we're going to be tying more material, and you don't want it to get too bulky right behind the bead. Grab your hackle pliers and grab that goose biot, and then you wrap the goose biot to form a nice rib and the abdomen. Now, to get back to the tail, I tie the tail with vulturine guinea fowl, but you can tie it with normal hackle. You can tie it with pheasant tail if you want, if you tie a brown version of this. And there are many different materials. I'm not too picky on the materials. I just like the vulturine because it's kind of a mottled color. It's got white spots on it. And you tie the abdomen all the way forward, but you cover at least 2/3 of the shank, and then you tie it off right there. Secure that with a few wraps, cut that excess, and wrap that Now, another material that I'm using in this, which is something that is not available on the market, but you can replace it with any soft tackle, is I use for the thorax, or the wing case at least, I use rock pigeon feathers that you get around the neck of the rock pigeon. I'm a wing shooter, so I always collect feathers, and they have beautiful little soft hackles like that. Put that on top of there is also a video on how to tie this wing case, which I will link. Put that on top of the hook, tie it in with a few wraps, and then pull it through those wraps to form the wing case, which will be the wing case when we're done. You cut that excess. And again, it's a very, very simple fly to tie. You can tie a dozen in an hour or so. Tie that end in. Trap all those ends. Take your thread back. Now, for the legs, I use ostrich, and on the natural grey, or on the grey fly that I tie, grey mayfly, I use a natural grey ostrich, and I take about 2 strands and tie those in on top of the, in front of the hackle that we tied in, and you trap those ends right there. Now you'll see that the area behind the bead is quite uneven, and you need to have that a little bit more even and finish it off nicely before you can wrap that ostrich. Now I'll just use a little bit of dubbing, and I mean, you can use, there's so many different synthetic dubbings. I use a black trilobal dubbing, which is a very fine dubbing, so it's easy to work with, and I just wrap the dubbing onto the hook, onto the thread, cover a little bit of the thread, short length of thread, and just tie that around the wing case area, or the thorax area at least, just like that. And you finish behind the bead. Now, very important is to keep that bead a little bit loose. Don't tie the materials too tight, because you want to tie the thread wraps in behind the bead. Take the 2 ostrich pieces of ostrich hull, twist them a little bit, and then just start to wrap that over the dubbing. Keep them together. It's not working well. Let's just try something else here. There we go. And you'll see it forms quite a bushy thorax. Now, the nice thing about ostrich hull is that it's very, very fine, and it looks very big now, but as soon as this fly gets wet, there's a lot of movement in the thorax area where you want the movement, and it thins out quite a bit. You grab that pigeon hackle, or the soft tackle if you use soft tackle, fold that over the ostrich and tie that down right behind the bead. Now you'll see when you're done with the fly that the thorax is a little bit bigger than what, it's almost, it's not entirely half the hook length, same length as the abdomen, but it's not a third. It's between half and a third of the abdomen, which gives a very nice profile on this, and proportions. That's the proportion that I quite like on this fly. And you just make a few wraps, make sure the thread go in behind the bead. Brush that ostrich backwards a little bit, and you tie that fly off right there with those thread wraps in behind the bead. And then the last step, what I do with this is just to cover that thorax. Just undo that. Is to cover that thorax with a little bit of UV resin. And what I do is I always put 2 layers on. So I take a small drop of resin and rub it into the hackle, into that wing case. Cover that nicely. And then just cure that with a light. And then I take a slightly bigger drop just to give it that shiny finish. And I cover that and cure that with a light as well. And that's the mayfly, and it looks like quite a big fly, but it's as soon as the ostrich gets wet, it thins out quite a bit. It's a fly that you can fish very slow in slow water. It will not sink fast because you're using a very light bead, and it's definitely something that I'll fish as a point fly. And like I say, I tie them in black, and I tie them in olive and in brown. I use different color beads with them. With the olive, I use an olive bead. With the black, I use a matte black bead. And with a grey, I use a silver bead. I haven't tied any with orange beads. I'll definitely be tying some with orange beads. And I also match the ostrich hull with the different colors. So go out, tie a few, try them out, let me know what you think. Leave a comment, please like and subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and thanks for watching.